Hello and welcome to a new video of the Path to DevOps series. Today we're going to install our MySQL server and prep it again, but this time on a budget. And what I mean by that is we're not going to use Azure Cloud because I figured that some of you might not afford or might not want to open a subscription yet until you see all the goodies from this course. And you just want something that's free and easily done on your local machine. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. So let's see how we can install a MySQL server locally. We want to stay true to the purpose of this DevOps journey, so we're going to install our SQL server using containers, obviously. And in order to run containers on your local machine, you need to have a container engine installed. Now, if we were talking 1 year ago, I would without hesitation recommend Docker Desktop, but because they changed their licensing model and some of you guys might not have personal computers, you might actually be using your laptops from work or something else, and I don't want you to be hesitant or to worry about the licensing model that they changed. I'm going to recommend Rancher Desktop because at the moment it's free and it's a one-to-one alternative for Docker Desktop. So you can install it from this link here. And I'm going to access it myself because I don't have it, or at least I uninstalled it for the purpose of this video, so I can install it with you guys and show you how you can do it on your own. First, select your operating system, and I'm running on Windows, so I'm just going to download the Windows package and select the downloads folder. Yeah, I already have it, but I'm going to replace it, not a problem, and download it again. And it'll take a few seconds. The installer will be right here in my downloads folder. At the moment it's unconfirmed. There we go. There we have it. So double click it. And here it is. We need to accept the license agreement that I obviously read before. And now it's just installing the software, which will allow us to run containers. And don't worry, if you don't actually know what containers are, you just have to follow this walkthrough to get your SQL server up and running and to be connected to it. And we will discuss containers in depth later through this journey. But at the moment, we have only one goal in life, and that is to have the application stack running locally. And then we'll jump into containers. Okay, so the package was installed on our computer now, and I'm going to finish and run it at the same time. And there's only one thing you need to change when you get the Rancher Desktop. Here it is. And that thing is, there we go. You need to make sure here that your container runtime is set to Docker-D. Yeah, make sure this is set because otherwise you won't be able to run Docker commands. Having installed Rancher Desktop, we're bound to jump to step number 2, which is to run the MySQL server as a container. And that's fairly simple. We just need to apply this command in a terminal and hit enter. Now let me explain the command. So this command will run using Docker the MySQL server 5.7 image. This image will be run as a container whose name will be MySQL. This container will always restart unless stopped. We will do some port mapping on the local host. This is necessary to be able to connect from the MySQL Workbench client to the MySQL server, which will sit inside the container. And it will run in the background detached. That's what -d means. It means detached. So let's run the command and see what happens. So it's unable to find the image locally because I don't have it. I just installed Rancher Desktop. But what we can do is wait for it to be pulled from Docker Hub. When the pull is complete, you will receive this ID, which is the ID of your running container. And in order to inspect your container, you can run the command docker ps. And basically there's a lot of containers in here, but what you're interested in is the one with MySQL in the image and MySQL as name. And you're looking at the status. If the status says healthy, then you're good to go. Step number 3 will be a handful, so follow along. The first thing is to get the password that was automatically generated for your MySQL server inside the container. And if you're running Linux, then you can actually run this command. I'm on Windows, so I need to manually search through the logs, or yeah, I could have used PowerShell, but I noticed that doesn't work with the Linux logs. So there we go. You need to search for this string, generated root password, and I'm just going to copy this and store it somewhere for future usage. All right. Now that we have this, the next step is to enter the container so that we can talk to the server, because at the moment from my host I can't actually get inside the container, and we'll see why in a few seconds. So now we've entered and it's asking for our password. So I'm going to supply the password, hit enter, and now we're inside. And what's important is if you're on a fresh install, you need to alter your user and give it a new password. And I will do that. Now this is the new password that you need to give your user, and I'm just gonna say test123. This should do. All right, and now I've changed my password. Now we need to look at the connection permissions. And why is this important? Because your container is actually separated from your host. It runs on top of your host or inside your host, but they are separated from a networking perspective. So if we look here, you'll see that the root user, so if your table looks like this and your root user is able to access the server only from localhost, it means your root server, your root user can only access the MySQL server from inside of the container. Basically what I've done here, I've used the exec command to enter the container so that I'm able to use the MySQL util and talk to the server. If I was trying to use the MySQL util from my PowerShell terminal in my laptop, that wouldn't work, okay? And that's what we're trying to make it work. So, moving forward, we need to update this permission for the root user. And the command is fairly simple, update MySQL user, set host to this sign here, the percentage sign, which means any host. So now my root user will be able to access everything even from my computer. And that's gonna be fairly useful, and I'm gonna show you in a second. Now let's check the change is done. We need to run the command one more time. And there we go. The root is now percentage sign, which is good. So let's exit. And now let's do a Docker restart MySQL. This is also necessary. I forgot to add it here in the markdown, but I will in just a second. And the Docker restart command just appeared magically here, so the markdown is complete. All that we're left to do is to connect to our local MySQL server. And we're going to use MySQL Workbench. If you don't have the client installed already, I'm going to leave the link in the description once again. So I'm just going to search for MySQL, and here we have it. Wait for a couple of seconds until it starts, and I'm going to add a new connection. And you shouldn't need to do anything else. It's already pre-configured. Just give it a name. Test the connection, and it will ask for your password. Mine was test123. I don't mind giving you this password because this is only running on my local host, and also I'm gonna delete the container in a few minutes, so it doesn't matter anyway. And I failed because I might have written the wrong password. There we go. Yeah, it was a typo. So we're in, right? I can hit OK now. And when I click localhost, we'll be inside the server, the MySQL server, which lives in our container. Isn't that cool? Now, again, we don't have the database and the table created. So for this, we have to jump onto the GitHub account one more time, and we need to take the product table query. I'm just going to copy it from here because it's easier. Paste it here and run it from the lightning button. Everything is good. Refresh the view, and here we have products. Yeah. Let's select the top 1000 rows, and here we have the same information. Should you want to connect your backend applications, cart API or product API, to this SQL server that you're now running on your local host inside of a container, doesn't that sound cool? Well, if you want that, there are two ways you can achieve this result. First one is you either go to source, main, resources, and in the application.yaml file, you configure the Spring Data Source URL, username, and password to basically localhost 127.0.0.1. Your username will be root because that's the default, and the password you set. Or you can, as I showed you, or actually as I will show you, you can configure environment variables, right? So these are the environment variables that you can configure, and Spring Boot, the framework that's behind these applications, will know to use them for these properties right here. But enough chit chat. Please let me know in the comments down below if you prefer this alternative where I do a follow along type of video and I go in depth and in detail with everything. Also, hit the like and subscribe button if you feel like it. Please, it would help me tremendously. And I'll see you in the next videos where we're actually going to compile the backend and frontend applications. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Bye.